Don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello and welcome to What the Fox podcast, where we question norms and break barriers by humanizing lived experiences. So today, Amber and I are here to discuss the complete antithesis of what we discussed last week, which was this concept of flow and how flow became all the rage during the pandemic. This whole idea of getting really comfortable with something that just helps you zone out, because we kind of all needed that during the pandemic.
For sure.
So,
absolutely.
Right. So today what we're talking about is the role of control, because that is definitely not what flow is about. Flow is about staying in flow in the here and now, not trying to control people, places, things, conditions, or any of that. And
it's funny when you said we're here to talk about the role of control, and I heard in my head dun dun dun, like antagonistic, like this terrible, like the role of control is terrible. And we're laughing, we're making fun a little bit, but truly control and the idea and focus and the amount of effort we put into controlling things that are effectively completely outside of our control has a ripple effect into our whole lives, right? So,
oh my gosh, it's exhausting. It is. We spend so much time, and I say we as the collective we, but also individually I.
Yes. Dude, I'm a project manager by day. Like, my job is control. That is
yes.
what I do, and I have
and
to
you're so good
everything.
at it. You're such a good control freak. You do great at it. But it's just, my goodness, we spend so much time and energy trying to control so much shit that it's so exhausting, and we kind of need to talk about that today.
Absolutely. And I mean, I am a self-labeled control freak. I know that I personally am more comfortable and less anxious if I have a certain amount of control over the things around me. However, I will put a caveat. I have done a lot of work over the last, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years to focus on areas that I actually can control and not focus so much on the areas outside of my control. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the episode, but I want to draw that parallel, because there's good control, there's bad control, and then, there's everything in between. But
wait, I want to use different word choice. I just want to use different word choice, because whenever I hear you say good control versus bad control, I kind of want to make it morally neutral. I sort of want to say,
fair.
I'd rather
healthy,
say
unhealthy.
Helpful forms of control versus unhelpful. Just because I don't want to necessarily say things are bad per se, but they're certainly not helpful or healthy at times.
That's fair.
That's all.
That's
all.
fair. Yes, it's a good call. It's fair.
Because I think self-talk goes into this too, right? So if we're saying bad, then that feeds into our negative self-talk and our internal dialogue. So I just wanted to reframe that for a second.
That's totally fair. I appreciate it, and I agree. Nobody will be surprised that I agree with that. But if we think about first the unhealthy elements of control, or the unhealthy focus areas of control, things like trying to control the past, which we all know you can't. It's done.
Yes,
it's gone.
It's gone.
Back there. The future, same thing. It's not here yet. You can't actually control it. You can work on things and give yourself the best possible outcome, but you have no control over that.
Yes. You might manipulate how you spend your time in the moment in hopes of creating a change in the future.
Yes.
But you can't change.
Nope. Sorry.
Control.
I hope that's not news to anybody here, but my personal one that I have battled for probably as long as I can remember is other people's opinions of me and other people's perceptions of me.
Ooh.
That one is 100% outside of my control. Whatever your perception is of me, I only know my honor system, my methodologies, and how I exist as a human. But I spent so many years trying to control and present myself in a way that was more acceptable to people. And just wasted time and effort in that, friend, because it's not good for anybody. Not healthy for anybody.
No, it's not. It's not healthy or helpful. But you are bringing up a really good point because, um, as we've talked about in prior episodes, particularly whenever we're thinking about people pleasing and wanting everyone to like us and think XYZ, it's like at the end of the day, none of that stuff's in our control.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if you're trying to keep the peace around you and it's at the cost of the peace within you, we've got problems. And so
Absolutely. I did that
that's
for
a
too many years.
right. But I mean, think about the growth process. Like you said, like you've come such a long way throughout all of this. And I know that we do some light teasing about you being a control freak. And you were so good at your job as a project manager and planning everything to a T. But it is, I will say, I think particularly with individuals with high functioning levels of anxiety, not having control or the perception of control is incredibly dysregulating for
Yes.
individuals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a struggle. And it's something I don't think I really started my healing journey with that aspect until I became a mom. Because you want to
Well,
try
yeah,
to throw
because
a monkey wrench into a control system, have a baby. Like,
it's
just
so true.
throw a baby in the mix. I think that's like Hazel
That's
Grace
your
was,
exposure therapy.
yeah,
That's your
that was
exposure
my
therapy. Just
exposure therapy to
dive
just
right
not
in.
having control, especially because like we've talked about Hazel on this podcast a lot, right? There is no one on this earth I have less control over than Hazel Grace. Like and some parents are going to give me the side eye for that. I do not control that child. She has a mind of her own. She has opinions. We have a working relationship, but there's a mutual respect and understanding between us. There's not a control between the two of us.
Yeah. I mean, well, you and your husband instill levels of discipline and teach,
Yeah.
you know, great things and all that jazz. But yes, at the end of the day, we are our own people and you cannot control people,
No.
which is where we kind of get into like the unhealthy aspects or unhelpful aspects is when we think we can control people, places, or things. It is just so self-sabotaging in terms of our own personal peace. And when we think about what that looks like, it's trying to fix other people, maybe attracting friends or workplaces or partners who require quote unquote fixing or to be saved or rescued. Hello, I can definitely say I have been that person doing that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like I'm not just talking at people. I've been there. But those kind of ideas of like, oh yes, I can control this outcome by inserting myself,
Well, it's
inappropriately
almost
inserting
like,
myself in this dynamic.
yes, and it's almost like a convenient distraction, right? So like anytime I find myself really hyper focusing on trying to control something that's outside of my control and I know is outside of my control, it's
Hmm.
usually because I'm trying to distract myself from fixing something that is within my control that does actually need my attention, but I'm not interested in
Meaning
fixing.
like it's procrastinating a bit.
Yes, yes, 100% yes. I'm guilty of that.
It's Yeah, you're so right though. I mean, you're absolutely right. Distractions. And I talk about this a lot actually with both my therapy clients and coaching clients is just how we can get so rigidly fixed on a topic, on nitpicking a specific topic. It could be something, I mean, it could be like couples therapy or something. I don't know, but you're just like one person is nitpicking the other for something so small. And then it's like, okay, well, let's zoom out, guys, and do bird's eye view. And it usually like whatever's going on, it usually has nothing to do with like the knife that was left with peanut butter on the counter. It has everything to do with like a bigger issue that no one's really talking about. And so then when we hyper focus on these topics or trying to nitpick and control other people or their actions or put attribute your feelings to how that person made you feel,
Right.
it's like those kind of things, you're right, they are distractions. It's pulling us away from really hard truths that we might not be ready to hear or lean into.
Absolutely. And it's shining the spotlight somewhere else, right? It's like, oh, it allows you to let yourself think for a moment that you are without problem or without something
Right.
needing to be done. Which,
we're,
as humans,
we're
I feel
talking
like it's a not self-soothing, but like a self-protection mechanism. It's like if I don't see it, it's not there. So I'm just
Yeah,
gonna like
I could see that,
ignore it.
like denial, defense mechanism,
Yeah.
self-soothing. I think it could fit in any, however you want to label it. I actually think those are all pretty relevant depending on what we're talking about, what the specific context of whatever it is. Um, but there is a concept that I've mentioned in prior episodes. It's a Zen Buddhist concept that you do bring into the world of psychology at times, depending on one's modality with treatment. But it's this idea of that there's an American Buddhist named Pema Chodron who talks about the middle way, and it's the middle way is basically sitting in this space of limbo where it's just not comfortable. It's that uncomfortable space of knowingness that, yeah, you're entering a healing space, where you're not on the other side and you've already entered this space where you need to heal or address this thing. And now you're sitting in it and it's like you're sitting in the
Mm,
mud,
yeah.
but you're not fully out of it. That's usually the time when I feel we are grasping at straws or throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to control things so that we can get out of that mud as quickly as possible.
Mm. Rather than
Which,
feeling and doing the work and
yeah,
understanding, just like fix what is it? Someone said it the other day, and now I'm not going to be able to remember it, but it's like fixing the symptom and not the root cause, right? Like
right, right.
we're dealing with this surface level up here, and we never go down below to actually get to the source of the problem.
Right. And again, ties in beautifully to what you were just saying about the distractions, right? And hyper focusing
Hmm.
on like a topic rather than the bigger issue. It's like, let's distract ourselves and pick out this topic or this like symptom over here and put a band-aid on it so that we can tell ourselves that we're pulling ourselves out of the mud and try to control the situation and say the problem's all over and now everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
Let's
well, and it
keep
also
moving.
gives you an out, right? Like, okay, I told you what the problem was. The problem was the knife with the peanut butter or whatever you said.
Yeah,
Um,
whatever.
and then I gave you the opportunity to fix it and you didn't fix it. So here we are, it's broken. When in
Hmm.
reality, like the knife with the peanut butter on it was maybe a small annoyance, but communication was the root problem, or work stress or
Yeah.
whatever happens in relationships, because they're
Yeah.
all work. Side note.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it's all a distraction. It's all a clever, we look for the thing that is easy to fix, not the thing that needs to be fixed.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Which is where I kind of want to shift gears and look at the next level of this, which is what we call our locus of control. And I know that I have certainly mentioned this before. I sometimes like with people I've been seeing for a while, I'll say like, focus
Oh
on your
yeah.
locus,
The
because I'm
first time you
saying,
said that to me, I was like, what?
yeah, like, are we
Like, I'm
talking
not
about
looking
like
for bugs.
locust? Yeah. I remember you saying that. I was like, no, 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 that's not what I
Like,
mean.
oh
We're not
dear
talking about
girl,
bugs.
please.
No, no. We're talking about focusing on your locus of control. That means looking at what actually realistically is in your control rather than what you want to think is within your control.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm looking,
Well,
looking
and
at
like
you.
they're not fun topics sometimes, right? Because the things in your
No.
control are things like your self-talk. So that rolls back to what you were saying, when I automatically said good, bad, control, that's a negative self-talk. And
Yeah.
it's not, it may seem small, but it does build up over time. And it's something that you can pay attention to and make changes
Hmm.
that actually create goodness, and growth.
Yes, that's
Um,
right.
Things like your boundaries, which Lindsey, you and I talk a lot about because we're huge fans of boundaries. And actually, this one is a good one because you and I have been talking about it a lot lately. And there's a new movement about boundaries. So boundaries became really popular, the it thing in like 2020. And everybody was setting what I would refer to as sometimes unhealthy boundaries, where you get into a situation with a person or a relationship and you cut off ties, but you never explain why you cut off ties, or you
Like
never, and I'm,
ghosting.
yeah, like ghosting. And I mean, I'm not saying that every person deserves an explanation. But there are some situations where you
Yeah.
have a long-standing relationship with a person and suddenly they say, hey, do you want to hang out? And you just say no with no explanation. Like that becomes toxic, right? So boundaries can be both healthy and unhealthy all at the same time with the way they are presented, enacted, and shared.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we can talk about boundaries a lot more for sure.
Yes,
But
that could send us down a foxhole.
that's right. That's right. We don't want to go there today, not yet. But it is true, and we can definitely get into that because there are three different types of boundaries, and that's a whole other topic. But yes, boundaries are absolutely within our locus of control. How we talk to ourselves, how we talk to others, how we communicate, how we choose to spend our time. These are all personal choices that we are in control of. And I think that's another piece of it is just like the empowerment element of understanding that you are a change agent in your own life. It's not like life is happening to you. You actually have a role in it.
What? You're kidding.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
I feel like
who's
sometimes
driving
we
this
lose sight
bus?
of that.
I do ask that sometimes, and
Because
I
anxiety gets in the way. That's what I
yes,
mean. It's like
yes,
fear and anxiety hijack our experience of living life.
yeah. I can always tell. I'm gonna use air quotes for those who can't see us. Who's driving the bus is a common theme in my life. When I start to feel stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, roll back. Who is driving the bus? Because the person driving the bus gets to choose which path we take and how we feel about it. So I'm not going to let anxiety sit in the driver's seat. I'm not going to let depression sit in the driver's seat. Like I'm not going to allow these other ideas, situations, or people to make that decision. So
Right.
I love that you say that because I'm here for it.
Yes, yes. And okay, so the last thing I want to bring up, and I know it's like so nerd alert of me,
Oh
but it
gosh.
just it's because of this incident that happened yesterday, and it just flows beautifully with this topic. But I was walking my dog yesterday, and I met this guy who was walking his dog, and as we started chatting, I learned that this man I really can't tell you all the ins and outs of what he does, but he does something with artificial intelligence and specializes in chaos theory. If you could see Amber's face, she wants to kill me. She hates when I go off track like this because
No,
it's
I
not.
don't.
And
It's fine. All I'm thinking, honestly, I'll tell you exactly what's in my head. One, stop talking to strangers.
what?
Two, like
You realize this podcast would not exist if I didn't talk to strangers, right?
no, I do.
Because
I know. But I will say, the control in me immediately was like, oh my gosh, you talk to a stranger on a walk with your dog. Ah, which
yes.
like that's me being me. But I love that you talk to
Yeah.
strangers. I love that you strike up like random conversations and learn and meet people who are in artificial intelligence working on the chaos theory, like on a dog walk.
Actually, what he does is truly fascinating. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to have him on the podcast. But this is how I meet people that come on the podcast. It's just you meet the coolest people. But
It's true.
yes, I mean, so he does work on what is known as the butterfly effect. And I want to just share what chaos theory is so that y'all understand how this comes full circle. I'm not going to get into all the math mess. So don't roll your eyes at me, Amber.
Please don't mask me today.
No, I'm not. I know, right? I can't handle it today either. Um, okay, so in chaos theory, the butterfly effect is the sensitive dependence on initial conditions in which a small change in one state of a deterministic nonlinear system can result in large differences in a later state. Okay, that was a lot of
Say it in
words.
regular words.
Okay, sure. Layman terms. Small changes make a huge difference.
Small changes can make a huge difference, I think is
Yes.
the
Conditions.
synopsis. Yes.
Yes. Yep. Is that right? Small changes can have an effect. It's that ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect.
Yes.
It's this idea that focusing on your locus of control and starting with the small things like how we talk to ourselves and what word choices we use, like at the beginning of today's episode.
Yeah.
these things are super small and they might seem kind of like pesky or like, meh, whatever, I'll get to it tomorrow. And don't get me wrong, like I am a huge procrastinator and I love tomorrow. But
The cool thing about tomorrow is there's always something to do.
it's
If you procrastinate,
it's so true. I'm always busy. There's always something going on, yet nothing at the same time. It's amazing how that works. But my point is that by focusing on our locus of control, those are the small little tidbits that we do have change over. And in essence, it changes and has the ability to change human behavior, how we show up in the world, how we connect with other people, and the ripple effect of how that affects one person's day and overall life. I mean, it goes on you go on such a small scale, but then it expands to the human condition. And I think that's why these small changes that we are in control of, it matters. How we show
yeah,
up in the world matters.
it does. And something I just remembered, back when the pandemic first happened, we did a challenge inside of my wellness community. It probably wasn't at the start of the pandemic because I think this was when things like started initially opening back up. But the challenge, it doesn't matter. The challenge was when you see people, offer a smile. So you pass someone on the street, you see someone on a Zoom call, you see someone at the gas pump, somebody's checking you out at the cash register. Obviously, we were in masks then. You can still tell someone's smiling with a mask on, PS. Offer a smile and see the change that it brings to that person. And the goal was to offer 3 smiles a day, and to different people to try to combat the feelings of depression, the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of loneliness. And what everybody reported back was that they felt the impact 10 times
Yes.
over, because every time they
Yes.
smiled at someone and that person smiled back, it was like
Yeah.
instant gratification of, oh, I'm
Yes.
seen, I'm
Yes.
here, and we can share joy together.
It's the contagion effect. It makes
Yeah.
all the sense in the world. I mean, it's showing up in the world and also having that experience of altruism of wow, I'm getting something in return, all just from this little act of kindness. And so it's a win-win for everyone involved. And so I do think it's important for us to highlight the positive elements of control because it's not all quote unquote bad. It's not unhealthy. It's not,
Yeah.
horrible. Or always unhelpful. There are elements that can be, but I think with all things in life, moderation, balance, those things matter. So
Yes.
when taken into context, yeah, I think that there are elements of control that we should be proud of and lean into because it does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it on previous episodes that the energy we choose to bring to relationships, whether they are, romantic, friendships, business relationships, whatever, the energy we choose to bring to the table matters, and it has a huge ripple effect or butterfly effect, even if we weren't referring to it as that. That energy that I bring to you helps determine what your energy might be to other people.
Yeah.
Because if we have a positive interaction and you leave our interaction and you go to your next one and you're in a good mood, you're probably more likely to have a good interaction in that next situation, right? And it spins out everywhere that you touch and you go and you grow. And I think
Yeah.
that's where it's good to invest the time in the self-care, the self-talk, the energy that you bring to the table, the energy you allow in your space, going back to
Hmm.
boundaries.
Yeah. And so honestly, if you haven't thought about it or haven't done it in a while, go buy the person, next in line a cup of coffee, go donate blood, go, help out a neighbor. Just little acts of kindness like that. It's amazing what the ripple effect is. And think about what your sense of agency is as you move through your day-to-day life. I mean, I think we take that for granted a lot of times. But we actually have a lot to offer and tend to minimize that.
Well, yeah, because it's a lot, I'm going to use air quotes again, sexier to fix the big thing that's the problem. Like, it's not so cool to fix the little things. You know, you tell somebody, oh, I smiled at someone today. And they're like, oh, cool, weirdo. You know, why would you do that? Versus like, hey, I fixed this big project over here and saved, 10 jobs. Everybody's really impressed by that, right? And both have value. It's
Absolutely.
just different. It's different.
Sure. It's sort of like, whenever you eat one salad, you can't expect to lose 10 pounds. That's not how this works.
That's not how that works. No, that's not.
No, small incremental changes. It makes a difference over time.
Well, and alternatively, right? One candy bar isn't going to make you gain 10 pounds. So
right.
It's all relative, we'll say.
It is. It is. Anyway, I'm so glad that we could connect today and to talk about this because it really does. It worked right in flow with our last episode. It just happened to work out, didn't it? And we didn't even plan this.
I know. I love how these things work out. And one of the areas that I'm starting to really appreciate is that when you allow flow to happen and when you allow things to happen as they should versus trying to like manipulate every single aspect, things work out as they should with a lot less stress, right? I mean, and it feels good. It feels empowering, and it feels like, oh, this is the message that was supposed to come to light today. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. So thank you to our audience for tuning in today. It is so great to be back with all of you. We have missed being on this podcast, but we want to remind you that we are here every single Tuesday with new content. Do not forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it is that you use. We've got it.
YouTube, so that you can benefit from our air quotations and my ridiculous facial expressions, because never will I ever play poker with anyone.
Okay, wait, that's a nice call to action though. For real, you guys, if you are more of a YouTuber, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I always forget to mention the YouTube channel, but yes, we would love if you were to subscribe, watch us at work. Show your colleagues that we exist. That's all.
Yes, please. Colleagues, friends, family, all of them. Bring them on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Until next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
Hi, What the Foxers. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. As a reminder, today's episode is sponsored by Therapy Appointment, an EMR that is a practical tool for starting, growing, and managing a practice.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.